What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes and Chris. Before we jump into tonight's episode, we want to take just a minute and say thank you to each and every one of you guys that's been following along on the journey so far. It really does mean a lot to Chris and I. If you guys are checking us out on YouTube, if you don't mind, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. We do want to hear from you guys and get some feedback on the show. But when you're done there, we ask that you jump over to one of these platforms as well. Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or Audible, and hit the follow button there. That is true podcast platform. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, and you can download an episode for whenever you don't have a chance to sit in front of a computer and watch us. It'll give you an opportunity for you guys to listen along. Also, if you don't mind, share it with your friends. Let everybody you know tune into the Among the Ashes podcast every Thursday, 9 a.m. Also, if you would like to be a part of the show or you have a show idea, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com, or you can shoot us a direct message on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, all searchable by Among the Ashes Podcast. So with all that being said, let's jump into tonight's episode. We're going to be bringing on Marcus Chapman. Marcus is my first cousin. He and his brother are more like brothers to me than cousins, and we grew up together. We're pretty much inseparable growing up until we lost Les about 10 years ago in a car accident. So we're going to dive into that and how that affected him, how that affected me. We're going to talk a little bit about the loss of his dad and the loss of his adopted brother. So he lost his brother, adopted brother, and dad all within about a 10 or 12-year time span. We're going to talk about that, and then we're also going to talk about the direction that God has been leading Marcus and myself as well in what a man is and what it means to be a godly man. So if you don't mind, go grab you a snack, grab you a drink, sit back and relax, and let's jump into tonight's episode, One More Inch with Marcus Chapman. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. I am your host, Wes. Chris is off. He went to the Auburn-Vandy game. Can you believe that? Vandy, man. Anchor down, dude. I'm all about some Vandy. I always like the underdog. I talked about this the other week. Like, I like Vandy, man.
Don't be a bandwagon, dude.
I'm not a bandwagon fan. Like, 100%. Like, I love Alabama, but
there's no buts. If
but
you say but,
I like Vandy.
Contradict everything you said before that.
You're right. I like Vandy. I hope they do well. I would like to play them again because I think Alabama would destroy them again. But, you know, it looks better for us if they win out. That win doesn't look so bad. I mean, that loss doesn't look so bad. It did hurt. It did hurt. For those of you who don't know, my brother is on here. For those of you who do know, he's really my cousin, Marcus Chapman. So I finally got you in here.
Yep.
Yeah. You excited?
Yep. Nervous, but...
Nervous?
I don't know why, but...
Yeah. Well, it's like we were talking earlier, man. Anytime you get on stage or you go to talk anywhere, you get nervous, and that never changes. About 15 minutes into this thing, you're going to forget you got headphones on and you got a microphone in front of you and all that stuff. And, you know, there's thousands of people listening. So,
yeah,
you know,
that helps.
Yeah.
At least I don't see them.
By thousand, I mean like 3.
Yeah.
Not thousand.
Well, like at church the other day,
3.
I was telling Kyle, you know, I was nervous. He said, man, I'll just pick one person out.
Stare at him.
You know what I mean? Yep. And stare at them. And that was my opening thing. I said, man, I'm so friggin' nervous. Y'all just don't understand. I can talk. I don't know all of you, but I could talk to you one-on-one like I've known you forever. But being up here and seeing all of you, I was nervous.
So have you ever been in a church service or at some, even in school, like in the teacher just focus on you and they're looking at you only, and it's like you've got to maintain eye contact, like you feel like you have to. I come to realize in 20 years of speaking in front of people that they're not looking at you. They're just focused. It's like Kyle said, pick one person that you're comfortable with and look at them, because then it looks like you're engaging. They're not looking at you. You can fling boogers at them. They're not going to know. So God didn't bless me with a brother, blood brother, but he did bless me with 2 cousins that are closest brothers to me. Growing up, we were together.
Might as well.
Yeah. One of them is with the Lord now, which was your brother.
Yep.
What has it been? It's been nearly 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's been over 10.
Yeah, because Chloe was...
He was 30. I was 32.
Probably, what, 2 years old?
He was either 30 and I was 32, or he was 32 and I was 34. 33, turned 34. It was right before his birthday. Didn't he pass right before his birthday?
It was August
August.
17th.
Yeah. Yeah. I miss him, man.
Mm-hmm.
I dream about him a lot, man.
I do too, but every time I do, it's less, but he's different. You
So
know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's slim, not slim, but you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like fit,
yeah,
not
yeah,
muscular
yeah. No,
fit,
no, just
just
in shape. Yeah,
just
that's
a
why I see him.
solid dude.
That's why I say him. He's big, but he's
Yeah.
not. And for those of you who didn't know Les was 6'4", 6'5", 400 plus pounds, huge. I mean, he just was the biggest thing in the room. Had the biggest personality in the room.
Always was.
From time we were little, he was just well. I luckily never fought him. I thought one time we were going to at Nanny's, and I was smart enough to realize he'd beat my brains out.
We
I tell
won a
people all the
couple rounds.
time, Les would thump your head unless it was Marcus Chapman.
Oh, well,
Because big brother doesn't whoop little brother. It doesn't happen.
Well.
And I think Les let you slide. I mean, I'm not saying you wasn't a tough dude. I wouldn't have wanted to fight you myself, but
I've taken some licks, but I don't think it was his all.
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
I think
he had
he
some
held
mercy
back.
on me.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I mean?
sure. I remember that. You remember that day at Nanny's we were playing kickball?
Yeah.
And I don't really remember how it got started. His on the other team. I was opposite team of me, and we got to jaw jacking, and I'm just running my head at him, because I knew we're at Nanny's. Number one, Nanny ain't gonna let nothing happen to baby, But running my head, and then we get to your house, and I don't know why me and you left. We left because it got heated, I guess. But he comes in, and when he walked in, he just had that look, and I thought, oh God. And he come over, he sat down beside me, and he put that big old mitt on my leg, and he said, I'll beat your face in, right? I said, oh, 100%. 100%, I know. He said, just so you know. And it was over, we were good. But yeah, man, I miss him. Like I say, when I dream about him, like he's talking, but I can't hear him. And I think a lot of that has to do with probably some guilt from me because I don't feel like I heard him when he was here. He had some struggles. Not that most people haven't, but the last conversation I had with him, and we've had this conversation, was when you decide to change, call me.
Yeah.
He was married to a girl, and I'm not going to say it was her fault because he chose that road himself. And unfortunately, had they both chosen the right road, like I think they would have been happy. And but he dealt with a lot having that wreck. He had a bad car wreck and killed his first wife. He was 46, 47 days in the hospital, intensive care. Woke up like day 44, 45, and then
they kept him.
Yeah,
kept him in coma for a while.
Yeah, messed his leg up. Lost what was it, like 80% of the bone in his ankle or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 3 surgeries for it.
Yeah, and instead of his foot being straight, it was cocked at a 90 degree, and then he walked on his ankle. So you talk, all that pressure and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, obviously in a lot of pain, and then dealing with a lot of pain from Misty passing. He didn't go to her funeral.
Yeah.
And I remember when
toughest part about that was like when he came to.
Yeah, he knew.
He was asking, like he had the tube in.
Yeah.
But every time he would come to, he was mouthing, "Where's Misty?" And just knowing the day when they take that out.
Yeah.
I've got to tell him that she didn't make it, but I think he knew. He needed to know.
Yeah. Well, I remember when he was recouping at your mom's house, I would go over there from the church or whatever and sit with him, and we talked about that. He said, I knew.
Yeah.
He said, I remember the wreck. I remember seeing her. He said, I remember y'all being at the hospital talking to me. He said, I could hear y'all. He said, I thought I was dreaming. And I guess part of that is being medically induced coma or whatever, I know it was touch and go for, we thought we lost him then, but, so he had a lot of things that I just didn't. Now, 10, 12, 15 years later, now fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately, I learned to have compassion for people who have problems.
Yeah.
Back then I was just so religious and just so, hey, turn or burn. And took me going through some things to learn that. But I think that's why when I dream about him, like he gets mad at me like so much because he's trying to tell me something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't hear you. And it's like he's just he's so animated and so just like he's just trying to get it out, and then he'll just shake his head.
Like he's frustrated.
He's frustrated.
Like you don't understand what he's saying.
And it's because I can't hear you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is I don't know, maybe the Lord's allowing him to communicate with me. I don't know, but I think a lot of that is me subconsciously thinking I should have heard him.
Yeah.
You know, and if nothing else, his death definitely changed that in me.
Yeah.
It made me begin to see people where they are. And it's hard when it's a loved one, especially somebody you know is good or better than you know yourself, you know, and you're watching them struggle and you just don't know how to help them come out of it.
I wish I would have been in a better place of my life where I could have helped him more.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, we were young, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, our kids were babies and we were trying to make it ourselves.
Right.
And not that we've made it now, but I mean, you know, now it would have been easier,
Yeah.
you know,
A lot easier.
you know, and it was a lot on everybody. So, but you know, not only that, but then a couple of years later, your dad passes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge blow. And then 5-8 years later, Jared passes.
Yep.
So really, and for those of you who don't know, Jared is Marcus's adopted brother, but I mean, he's been there. You don't have the same mom and dad, but you have the same dad and stepmom, essentially. Yeah. I mean, your dad adopted Jared and took him in and raised him from, 4 or 5 years old. And so he's been a part of your life.
Brother.
Yeah, he's your brother, you know, and he passes with the dreaded COVID and, you know, crazy. I mean, he was 40, you know, maybe 40, right at it, a little over. And I mean, it's crazy to think, man, like, you're it.
I think about it.
As far as the Chapmans,
think about it often.
it's you and Kyle.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I can't imagine. I mean, that's a heavy weight, bro. That's a heavy weight, you know, to be the man of your family. Yep. You are the man of the Chapmans as far as your dad's children.
Yep.
You know, and that's a heavy weight because now, you know, I mean, not only do you have your mom to take care of, but you got Teresa, you know, stepmother, but you know, she's been a second mom.
And I've always thought of her like that, not really as my stepmom, just because you said, like you said, they've been together forever. You know what I mean? I just always thought of her as a second mom. You know, I think she thought when Dad died that
that was it.
Yeah, we wouldn't have anything to do with her, and I told her that. And it's like,
you know,
why would you think that? I don't know.
I was going over there a lot because I had free time with the church, and when I was working for the church, I could, if I wanted to, me and your dad go Bass Pro, we'd go, you know. And I remember when he passed, I can't remember if I was at her house or if it was at the funeral, but she said, "Wes, I just want to ask and make sure this doesn't change anything, right?" And I said, "Well, it changes a lot, Teresa. What do you mean, you know?" And she said, "Well, it doesn't change anything between us, right?" And I was like, why would it change anything between us? She said, "Well, I just want to make sure, you know, you're still going to come by and see me." I said, "Teresa, yes, you need me, you call me, you know." And I don't see her as much as I should. I don't see your mom as much as I should. I don't see my mom as much as I should, but like I've tried to, you know, cut her grass or what, you know, find people to do things that she needs done or whatever when I can. And because I mean, she's by herself, you know, and that's, you know, that's a hard thing when you spent 30 years with somebody and just suddenly they pass, you know. It's tough. I began to realize that the older, I mean, I'm only 21, you're 60, so remember, you will always be the old man. But I guess the older you get,
Pulp's got to speak though.
Do what?
Pulp's got to speak.
Yeah, you're right. We stay on the porch when we bark, but we bark, you know. I guess the older you get, the more you realize that things are finicky. I mean, look at Uncle Steven, what he's going through right now, you know. Was it 5 bypasses they did? 4?
Yeah, I think that
it was the max you could have.
Yeah,
I think Steph said 5.
Blocked.
Yeah, everything. 95%. 2 to 3 more days, he would have just died. And he's 66, 68, you know, and to me, it was kind of the epitome of health. Worked every day, and I mean, I've worked with Uncle Steven. He don't really work. He goes to work. He goes to work.
He has a job.
He has a job. I'm just kidding. Okay. Uncle Steven's a hard worker, man. Him and Uncle Wayne both, but does that every, you know, did that every day, like every single day, and just he had an accident and we were talking earlier, and he fell off a tractor or whatever, and I think it was God's way of slowing him down. Ended up cracking some ribs, I think, and then developed pneumonia. And a month or so goes by, month and a half. I went by there the day it happened. I was in Gardendale cutting grass, and I said, well, let me just stop in and see Aunt Jeannie and Uncle Steven real quick. And I spent about an hour with him, and he was gingerly walking. I mean, you could tell it was a hard fall. His arms were all scraped up. And then Candace said she had seen him at the after hours last week, and then all of a sudden, he's... So I think he'd been after hours twice, and then to the emergency room, and they'd both told him just go home, and then they finally take him to Grandview, and they're like, oh, hey, by the way, you're about to have open heart surgery. Another day, too, you probably would have died, It's crazy to think, man, just how precious life is, I guess. We don't think about that in our everyday blowings and goings, but yeah, it's crazy to think that we're the age that we are, doing the things that we're doing, having the things that we have, being as blessed as we are, and how much we take it for granted. I know I do.
Yep.
I never in a million years thought I would live anywhere like I live now. Never. I remember driving by.
Hope for it though.
Well, I guess in a way. I mean, well, first off, this house to me is too much for anybody. It's too big. Your house is too big. In reality, I mean, it's a big house.
Especially when
the kids are about to leave. You know what I mean? Our old house was nicer than anything I ever grew up in. You know what I mean? And that's not a poke at my mom or anything. Like, my mom absolutely provided great places for us, but like, I don't know. Thank God my wife has dreams and aspirations. Well, we'd live in a single wide somewhere as far as I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't matter to me. But
that was yours.
Yeah,
it wasn't mom's. It was yours.
Right.
Right. I think you taking pride in it and working for it.
Definitely a lot different. But I would have never. I don't know, man. I don't know what I expected as a kid. Really, like growing up. I never really had aspirations to be anything. Like, I'll just get a job. Yeah. College ain't for me.
I never thought like I would be rich. You know what I mean? And never thought, well, I'll end up rich. I just wanted simple stuff. You know what I mean? I want a house that's mine, and not struggle. A couple kids, and dogs, and a boat, and
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been hard.
If that's what I had, I could die a happy man.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, I think both of us, we both married women who are driven. I accredit everything we have to the success of my wife, not me. She's definitely smarter than me, and definitely more driven than I am. If I got something to eat and somewhere warm or cool to sleep, I'm good. I guess that's just part of being a man. I don't know, but
isn't it crazy that they work together for so many years and they're just alike?
Just alike. Yeah, they're just alike. It's so funny. But I mean, you and I mean, for years, Sarah Glover called me. She still calls me Marcus. And I don't think we look as much alike now as we did.
We've always.
I don't know. Maybe.
Is that your brother?
More than you and Les got.
Yeah.
And we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. Good ways and bad, I guess, in a lot of things. I probably wouldn't be an Alabama fan if it wasn't for you. I didn't care about football till we started watching it with y'all. So real tied to that. Now I love it. Told Keegan, I said, y'all don't know what it's like to lose, man.
No.
Y'all don't know. He can't handle it. Like, he can't, like, it's like Keegan talking about, Cullen talking about Vandy. I'm a Vandy fan.
Yeah.
Dude, it's because you don't know what it's like to lose.
I wanted to strangle him last night at the game when he told me that.
Look, pull for Vandy if you want to. That's fine. You can have a second team. That's okay. That's fine. But next year, they're going to fall off. They're going to. I mean, there's no proven history there. And the thing about Alabama is even in the bad times, they still compete, and even in the Mike Shula and the DeBose years, they still competed,
Yeah.
But I said, y'all don't know the hard struggle of being a Bama fan, man. I mean, it could always be worse. We could be Auburn fans.
Oh, no, I'm kidding.
We could be Tennessee fans and tear down a goalpost because we beat somebody.
I couldn't.
No, I couldn't. I'd start watching soccer. It's new in your neck of the woods.
Just to be honest, men's ministry at church. I've always been told that I've had a calling on my life, and never really understood it, or never really accepted it, because I didn't feel called.
Yeah.
You know, like I've never felt like the Lord told me, Marcus, I need you to preach, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. I've never felt that. Like I've never felt like the Lord's confirmed that to me.
Yeah.
Till lately. Um, our youth pastor at church, he had kind of pestered me threw the idea out about Lavanna and I taking over the college and career class at church, and I thought about it, you know, and but I was like, Lord, you know, I'll do that if that's what you want me to do. But I never really felt like He said, yeah, that's why I'm putting, you know, getting that in your ear.
Yeah.
Never really felt it, but um, just being at church, I play the drums, and I'm looking out at the congregation every Sunday, and just noticing the young men that's graduated this year, and all the young men that are in youth group ready to graduate this year. You know, it's just like, man, we've got a lot of young men that I don't know if all of them have good homes, you know what I mean, or have a father figure in their life. And then, like the next Sunday, I see, well, heck, there's a lot of guys my age, you know, there's a lot of 30 somethings. And it's like, you know, man, we're not really doing anything with the men, you know? And the more I thought about that, I prayed about it, it's like, Lord, is there a reason why um, you you've got me to notice this and this? Um, in the meantime, all that, I went to a men's conference with my son. Um, have you had Kyle on? But my son
No, I don't
Kyle,
even know if we've talked about that. Maybe
and
we have, but
and but I went to a men's conference with him, and me and Patrick had talked about it. You know, we worked together too, um, and I was telling him about the men's conference, and he got as excited as I was. You know, and we went back and forth about it. In all of that, it's like, you know, Marcus, I need you to do something with the men. You know. Well, then it's like, well, okay, I felt like the Lord wanted me to do a men's conference. Well, in him dealing with me about doing a men's conference, and me, you know, praying about it and seeking, is this what you want me to do, Lord? He's kind of revealed that to me. Like, yes, Margaret, that's what I want you to do. It's not just this men's conference, it's men's ministry. And he's revealed a lot about it. Um, like I said, other than just the conference and just ministry. It's the more I pray about it and the more He reveals to me, it's more of a ministry. It's more of a movement. Um, the Lord's He's fixing to take this whole area. When I say movement, I don't mean like a move of God on men. Yes, it's going to be that, but I mean a movement like nationwide. Like this place is going to explode, this place is going to explode, this place is going to explode. And there's just different parts of ministry and discipleship and mentorship that young men need, middle-aged men need, seniors, elders. We need to be learning from them. Um, but he's revealing a lot, and I know he's got a lot in store for us.
well, so let's back up. So, for me, I committed my life to Christ at 18. You and I, we always close, but at that point, we kind of
Yeah.
went.
Right.
Two different directions. I gave my life to Jesus. You were still kind of where you were. We both grew up in church. Have always loved the Lord,
Yep.
but didn't always do what we're supposed to be
Just
doing.
lukewarm about it.
Yeah. So when I gave my life to Jesus, you're talking about calling. Like I knew that moment
Yeah.
that God told me, call it a vision, I guess. I don't know, but I saw myself on a stage preaching. I saw my wife. I couldn't see her face, but it was Candace. Red hair, same build. She was actually singing, which is crazy. How all that kind of unfolded in youth group,
Yeah.
I didn't 100% know that I would be a youth minister, but I knew God told me that I want you to preach to the nations, is what he told me. So for me, I always knew my calling at the point that, like I got
Yeah.
saved at 18 and within a matter of weeks,
Yeah.
I knew that. God showed me that. Fast forward 20 years later, 20 years later and then back up about 13, I walked away from preaching, from not intentionally, but I walked away from my job as a youth pastor. Under the guise of the Lord telling me, hey, you're done. Like 2 years prior, before the Lord had told me, hey, you're released. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I just knew it was time to go. And I probably stayed a little too long. Probably wouldn't have hurt as bad had I left on my own terms. Well, I did leave on my own terms, but anyway, we won't rehash all that because right, wrong, and indifferent, there were wrongs on both sides. But either way, it probably wouldn't have went down the way it went down had I just listened to God in that moment and just resigned. But I had some students that I cared about, Chris being one of them, that I wanted to see graduate. And but it wasn't until after that I knew God called me to young people. I knew I had a gift for young people. I knew that I cared about young people, but I thought leaving the church that possibly might take another youth pastor job, but was more than likely going to church plant or talk to the state office about taking a church because I had gotten my ordained license and about taking a church that needed a pastor. I wasn't willing to relocate, so it would have had to have been local, number one, which tied my hands. And also reached out to the state office 3 or 4 times over several years, couple years in a row, and nobody ever called me back. Interviewed a couple different youth pastor jobs. Well, you've been out of it for 2 years. You've been out of it for 5 years. You think you're relevant. Well, I know I'm relevant. I know I can grow your youth department, but that's all right. You take that hot shot that just got his license. In the 6 months, you call me, and they did.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, hey, he's taking a church somewhere because he's not called to youth ministry. What you should have been looking at was that I stayed somewhere for 10 years.
Sure.
That's what and grew it from 7 kids to 50 consistently, sometimes 100.
Yeah.
But we had 50 core kids that were there every week, week in and week out. So it wasn't until then though that I realized taking a secular job that if they're 30, 25, 30 and under, they're at my desk all the time.
Yeah.
And that's right in the demographic that I left, or age group would be now. Chris is 34. And it really showed me my calling more, not that I couldn't pastor, not that I can't preach to adults or anything like that, but like, I just know kids, which is creepy for a 45-year-old man to say, I guess. But like,
well,
but I knew at 16, we're 17 wanting to volunteer with Boys and Girls Club, and I look back then and see that now.
So like Richard Wilson asked me when we were planning our men's conference, and we'll get to that, and I was just telling him, he was excited that somebody wants to do something with men and stuff. And I said, one of the things that I really see, and that was the thing that really struck me at first, was the younger kids, the younger men, that's coming out of high school into college and stuff, that they don't have that life experience yet, And I said, man, he had asked me one time, he said, how long you been going to church? And I said, what, 15, 16 years old when we started Dilworth, and it's like,
my lot died, folks. I'm sorry.
um,
We'll power through it.
think about. I said I can think about how much better. Well, not to say better, but how much more quickly could I've ended up where I'm at now
Had you been mentored?
had I been mentored, had I had somebody, had I really taken my relationship with God seriously, you know what I mean? Man, Wesley, I've lived out of my car. I've been homeless. I've lived on, buddies' couches. Um, I've gone through a lot of that stuff that was my own choosing, you know what I mean? That's where I ended up. But it's like, how much quicker and how much better, not to say that I don't have a good life now, and I thank the Lord that I do for all his blessings. That's why I have all that I have. But how much better would it have been, my life have been the way up, had I had somebody to mentor and had somebody to tell,
And
don't,
maybe it would have, but maybe the flip side of that, and I know where you're
I mean,
going. I know where
you
you're
know,
going, but I also believe that God allows those things in our lives to
absolutely,
define us
absolutely,
and make
build
us
your
who we
character.
are.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So don't shortchange yourself on
Yeah,
that and take anything away from that. But I get where you're going, and that's one thing that we don't um, focus on enough. Sorry, Kirsten's blood sugar's going crazy. That's one thing that we don't focus on enough at church is men.
yeah,
So we think men park cars,
right,
men hold doors,
right.
men seat people, men serve the pastor, men cut the grass, they clean the parking lot. That's men's ministry.
Yeah,
But it's not.
right.
That's men serving.
Yeah.
There's a difference in serving and ministry.
There's also, I mean, I don't often think of it like that, but the Lord's been revealing stuff to me, just like we're brothers, we're brothers in Christ. We get, society now is so politically correct with toxic masculinity and things like that. Men need to understand it's okay to be a man. That's fine. It's okay to be quote macho or whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean? But to what we think is a man, but men also need to understand it's okay to love another man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's okay to love your brother.
Yeah.
It's okay if your friend, your brother is breaking down, that he's
Yeah.
got a problem, and man, he needs a hug.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And I'm sure
but
you
we need to understand that.
I'm sure you've seen the video that says it's interviewing different men, and it's like, hey, who would you go to if you really had a problem? And they're like, nobody. I'm a man.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Well, we think we can
Suck it
handle
up, rub some dirt on it,
Sure.
move forward, And that's one thing that I've experienced over the last several years, and one reason for starting this podcast, and it's funny, I was telling you the other day, and I've talked to Chris about it, like, I know God told me to do this several years ago, and I don't really know why I didn't start it then. I'm pissing and moaning and complaining about not having anywhere to minister and da-da-da, and the Lord said, well, you got to be in a pulpit to minister, Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
You got social media. You got a phone. Put it out there. And, well, God, I don't have the equipment. Well, you got social media is the way it started. I said, well, I don't have the equipment. He said, you don't need the equipment. You got a phone. Record it. Post it. It's free.
Yeah.
You've got a phone. Do it.
Do some work.
So I found every excuse not to do it, But when I started it, and that's how we came up with the name Among the Ashes, I've shared this before, but I'm going to share it again. I took it from Job, and I was going through some things in my life, and Job's sitting in his ash heap, and he's scraping his sores, and his wife's telling him, just curse God and die.
Yeah.
How awful was she? Satan didn't want her. He wanted everything else.
All of his friends. I've been reading Job. It's like all of his friends.
Every one of them. Every one of them. They're all telling him what he did wrong. None of them said, hey, buddy,
surely you've seen
you were doing everything right.
Yeah.
God's just working on you, man.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just have to go through something. So I'm going to sit right here in the ashes with you until you get your answer. If you want to hear from me, I'll talk. If not, I won't. And the Lord's been showing me the ministry of presence, about sometimes just being in the presence of somebody else helps them. Yeah. I heard a story of a guy sharing about he was friends with this girl and she would talk to him about Jesus and he didn't want to hear it. And I think he's a pro athlete, but anyway, he said he was so rock bottom. He went home and bought some liquor, and he's knocking the Hennessy back. And he said, I was so drunk to the point where I got my shotgun and I was ready. I'm going to put it there just to keep it from getting struck on YouTube. But he was ready in the moment. And she walks in. He's got his mouth around the barrel. We'll just say it. He was ready to commit suicide. If I get struck, I get struck. But he said, I was at that point, mouth around the barrel, and she walks in. And he said, she didn't say a word. She just sat down and put her hand on my leg. Mm-hmm. And he said, at that moment, I learned who Jesus was. It wasn't condemning me. Yeah. It wasn't trying to fix me. It was just, hey, I am here with you. If you're going to do this, I'm right beside you. Yeah. And that's tough.
Sure.
Like, that is tough. What if he had done that? How bad that would that have jacked her up? You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of things that could have come from that, but God was definitely in that moment inside of her to give her the boldness and the courage to just go in and sit and not say anything. And he said I wish I wrote his name down, but he said his whole ministry now is just the ministry of presence, just finding somebody who has a need and just being there until they tell you the need and you help them. Yep. You know, and we don't do that. We think, because I'm 100% tell you this. If you ask me, hey, buddy, how you doing? What's your answer? I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm good.
Well, we're men.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I could tell you anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like 100% could tell you anything, and have told you things that I would never tell anybody else. But I'm not going to tell you when I'm struggling. Yeah. I'm not. And I'm not going to tell my wife. I'm not going to tell my kids. And I don't know if that's because I'm worried about them, people seeing me weaker. You know, you believe in me. I don't want you to not believe in me. I don't want you to not have faith in me, you know?
Yeah, I think it's in men. I think we're built like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're protectors and providers. Sure. You know, it's not about us.
Right.
But it has to be about us some. I mean, ultimately, it's not about us. It's about our wives and our kids. And the Lord told me not long ago, he says, it's not about your feelings, son. Yeah. It's not. But you have to be okay.
Yeah, and it goes to the flip side of what I was saying a while ago about it's okay to love another man. Mm-hmm. Well, on the flip side of that, it's okay for you to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's okay for you to show your hurt or whatever that you're going through with your brother. You know what I mean? On the same sense of, you know.
And we've got to get to a point to where, I know we say that, but we've got to get to a point to where we mean it and people understand it. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's, things are so backwards now in the United States. I mean, just with the whole what is a man, what is a woman situation and political correctness. And I mean, I even do it here, man. I tell people coming on the show, hey, these are things to avoid. Don't say this, and this, you know. And I'm a big freedom of speech person. I hate telling anybody that because I feel like I'm censoring them. But it can keep you out of the algorithm. It can keep you from getting paid or whatever, you know. And the thing the Lord showed me with this, when we started doing the podcast, it was giving people an opportunity to come on and just share their story. Like, we're Christians doing a podcast, not a Christian podcast. Yeah. So you can come on and talk about whatever. And we'll talk about it. Like, I'll hear you out. Yeah. I may not agree with it, but I'll hear you out. And the Lord showed me, he said, now that you've got your feet wet, you need to start focusing. And it needs to be more about being there for people. Yes, they don't have to know me, but you have to show them me.
Yeah.
You know, and we try to do that. You know, we talk about God and things like that. But, you know, we've had some episodes that I've done for clicks. You know what I mean? Or episodes that I thought would drive people there. I'm a big conspiracy guy. I love Bigfoot and things like that. I know several people in that realm, and most of those are Christians. But how is that glorifying God? You know what I'm saying? Like, he told me to do this. Why am I doing it my way and not his way? And the funny thing is the episodes that have done the best are not the ones that I thought would do the best because of the topic, you know? And the thing I've come to learn is I can't make anybody listen to this. I can't make it show up in anybody's YouTube queue or on their podcast queue. It's just going to show up if it shows up. And the only way it's going to show up is if the Lord drives it where he wants it to go. You know? And so this season 3, we're shifting gears. And I think we're going to focus on men, like, because the whole thing about it, you bringing the men's conference, like, that struck something inside of me. It excited me, you know.
Oh, I could tell.
and it's because it's something that's needed, man, because we're so backwards in society right now. You know, our women run the household, and it's not intentional.
Right.
You know, I mean, look, I'll straight up tell you, my wife is smarter than me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? She makes better decisions than me. So it's easier for me to just sit back and let her do everything than it is to take control.
Yeah, well,
you know?
The Lord's revealed a lot of stuff like that. Just little stuff you don't think about.
I'm not talking about taking control, putting my thumb on.
No.
You know?
Well, just say this, for instance. Some men are so in love with their wife, they're not going to ever rock the boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Anything to keep the peace, or, you know, anything, just, yes, dear, whatever.
Yeah.
Some of those women need for you to rock the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
They might want you to rock the boat, and they don't even know they want you to rock the boat.
Agree.
You know, just to be stand up and be a man.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just some stuff that the Lord's revealed to me.
Well, that's one thing I feel like he's been showing me too is women are attracted to power. I mean, they are. They're not like we are. We're attracted to looks. Women will date a man who is powerful and him be hideous. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because she knows she's taken care of, you know, and I feel like the Lord showed me in 2020 that there was a spirit of pharmakia, a spirit of Ahab, and a spirit of Jezebel, and they started in about the 40s. It was about the time, late 40s, early 50s, and it started in the home. It started with men committing adultery and stepping out on their wives and controlling their wives and just running amok. Then when that didn't work, the drugs and the alcohol started in the 70s and 80s. Then when that didn't work, it took a turn, and now it started with promiscuity being okay, AIDS, a lot of sexual driven sin, to now, you know, into homosexuality, into gender dysphoria and gender confusion and all that different things. And I'm not saying that, like, we shouldn't love those people. 100% we should. But I have a lady that I was able to witness to just randomly through Facebook on a page I'm on. And turns out she was a lesbian, and we're going to have her on the show. But she gave her life to Jesus. And she said for the first time in 50-something years, 54 years, she had felt God touch her. And she got saved, and she gave her life to Christ. And she called me not too long ago, and we were talking. And she said, well, I'm going to get married. And I was like, I made a joke. I said, what's her name? And she said, Jesus. And I said, Amen. I said, okay. And she said, I'm not that way. God delivered me. She said, I wasn't born that way. Yeah. I don't think that way anymore. That was just deception, you know. And I know there's a lot of people out there, and we may catch some flack for this, but like, I don't think you're born that way. You know, I don't think it's a sin to be attracted to somebody that's the same sex. It's a sin when you begin to operate in it. Right. You begin to act on it. Right. Same with any other sin, you know. But the whole ploy behind it, and we talked about this the other day, is I feel like Satan's trying to destroy the family unit. Mm-hmm. And by destroying the family unit, you destroy people from having children. Mm-hmm. And each thing didn't work. Oh. You know, men stepping out didn't break up the home. The wives stayed loyal. Yeah. Well, then the drugs and the alcohol didn't break it up. Yep. They're still having babies, and those babies are getting saved, and they're doing ministry, and they're reaching people to the point now to where if they're in a same-sex relationship, well, maybe this will work because they can't have kids. Well, they want to start adopting kids. Yeah. Well, now it's, well, let's confuse their identity. That way they won't procreate, and let's kill all these babies. Yep. You know, and that's where we're at, in my opinion, spiritually. And it's all just a ploy, I feel like, because we can do something Satan can't do. we can create life.
Sure.
He can't.
And I think yesterday, me and you were talking about this, and it was, I think, one reason that the Lord has showed me that, and He's called me to men, is for the young men to take and break generational curses.
Yeah, 100%.
And to rebuild their homes, and to stop a cycle.
Well, I think we've got a group of people right now as a society that want something substantial.
Yeah.
And when they realize that substantialness is Jesus Christ, they're all in. Does that make sense?
Well, and one of my statements that I wrote for a men's conference was for the Lord to show Himself to somebody that's looking for something real.
Yeah.
This right here, cell phone, it's the downfall.
Well, so Candace did a study in Revelation that talks about the worship, the image of the beast, and she said she thinks it's the cell phone. She thinks we're creating the image of the beast right here by worshiping ourselves. You're absolutely spot on.
So
absolutely spot on.
So think about, and we all do it. We're all guilty of it. Free time, I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen young kids these days, flipping through, and they're looking at videos? Hey, look at this. No, that ain't real.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. No, that ain't real. They flip to another one. Hey, look at this. That ain't real. They're subconsciously looking for something real, dude.
Yeah.
If we don't show them God something real, the world's going to.
Well, and the flip side of it is, and I've said this 1,000 times, we don't know what is real anymore.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like we can't even trust the news.
AI, whatever.
And now with the advent of AI, it really screws it up.
Absolutely.
And you're exactly right. I've never thought of it that way. They are searching.
They don't even
for something true. They don't know the truth.
Wesley, we're the same way. I believe God built us purposely, almost with a void in our life. Something we don't know what it is, but there's something missing. But it's a yearning for Him.
And that's why we stuff it with hunting, fishing, phone, football. We stuff it with something.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But He's the only one that can feel it.
Yeah.
Because He created us that way.
Right. And that's the thing people don't realize. Like, creation will cry out to the Creator. 100%.
Yeah.
It will. You take a baby calf and you separate it from its mama.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to do? Brand new, born. Yeah. What's it going to do? It's going to cry for its mama. Mm-hmm. And it may not realize its mama is its mama. It may think you're its mama.
Yeah.
And it's going to cry out for you when you can't do anything. The only thing you can do is supplement.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is give it some sort of fake nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with today. We think, and the Lord convicted me. I was on TikTok, and this lady said something, and I agreed with it, and it turned out she was not a Christian at all. And I made a comment. She said, money's the root of all evil. And what she said was interesting. It took back to history, and I like that kind of stuff. And I said, well, sis, actually, and I can't remember where the scripture's at now, but in whatever, I think maybe 1 Timothy, I can't remember, it says, for the love of money's the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. And she stitched my comment on TikTok, and she just hammered me. Well, I hammered her back, and I said, well, long story short, sis, sounds like you got a lot of hate in your heart. I'll be praying for you. Well, she stitched me back. You white devil, don't you pray for me? You should ask somebody before you pray for them. I don't know what kind of juju you're putting on me. Da 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 da. She said, matter of fact, white boy, pray for me. Pray for me. I'll crop your picture and I'll put a curse on you. And I fired back. I said, well, I'll tell you what. My God allowed a man to call fire from heaven one time to destroy the prophets of Baal. Game on. Challenge. And the Lord spoke to me right then. He said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? He said, what are you doing? You're casting your pearls before swine. All you're doing is making Christians look bad.
Yeah.
You look like every other judgmental Christian out there right now. And he said, if you spent more time in your word, you wouldn't have time to be upset about things like this.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I feel like with Christianity. We're not offended that people are living sinfully. We're offended because the Bible says not to live offended or not to live sinfully, and they're living sinfully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not willing to do anything about it.
All right.
And we're just willing to tell you what the Bible says. When our closet is full of junk
Sure.
that we don't want nobody to see, you know? And at the point that we begin to show Jesus, I could have easily blasted Lisa. Easily blasted her. I spent half a day with a young man from my work that was pagan agnostic. I could have easily done him like every other Christian's ever done him and told him that he was wrong for his beliefs. But I rode and I listened. I just listened. I shared my struggles. I shared my downfalls. I shared where I was at in that moment. Hey, bro, look, I have planned my death many times. That's where I'm at as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus. And on the other hand, prayed to Jesus and asked him to take those thoughts away.
Yeah.
You think I don't feel like a hypocrite?
Yeah.
The next day, he gives his life to Jesus. She's given her life to Jesus within a couple of days of us talking. And I'm not saying it had anything to do with me, other than the fact that I was willing to listen. And I was not ashamed of where I was at.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the devil. Hey, you got to be ashamed. He's right there in our ear. You got to be ashamed of your sin. No, you don't.
Yep.
Because here's the deal.
He already knows.
Yeah, if I'm bought with a price.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me, if I'm ashamed of my sin, then you're telling me the blood of Jesus is not strong enough to cover that sin.
But the closer we get to God, the more we should feel our sin.
Sure. I'm not saying that we should cover it up, but
Sure.
here's the thing. If I come to you and I say, Marcus, I've got a pornography addiction, whatever. Thank God I don't. God delivered me of that from years ago.
Amen.
I'm not saying I don't struggle. I'm not saying that there's times that I catch my, oh, nope, don't need to look at that. But I like women. I like sex, 100%. I love my wife. You know what I mean? So therefore, I don't need to look at things like that. But if I come to you and I'm struggling in that area, and I say I have this problem, if you're gonna combat that with Scripture, that's fine. But there's a way to combat that with Scripture. There, you can do it. Romans chapter 8 verses 1 and 2 says, therefore there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus.
Right.
So if you're coming to Jesus, if you're coming to me seeking Jesus, I don't need to look down on you. And that's what I was talking about with Les earlier. I don't need to look down on where you're at. Jesus is not, Jesus doesn't like where you're at, but he'll meet you there.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a difference. We've created, the church went from being one extreme of hellfire and brimstone to love and rainbows.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of the both. It's not that Jesus accepts our sin. He doesn't accept our sin,
Yeah.
but he accepts us. And that's where we got to get with men. That's where people in general. But if we can do that with men, if we can get men to see that Christ will meet you right where you are. I told Lisa, she said, well, I'm not going to quit smoking pot. And Wesley, I'm a lesbian. And the Holy Spirit said, tell her I don't care. What? You don't care? He said, I'm not concerned with that right now. Tell her I want her. And I said, Lisa, I don't think God cares. This is what I feel like God's saying. You take it for what you want. I feel like God's saying, come to me.